That's a zoomed out goal. So what's the zoomed in goal? Zoom out and then zoom in to make your goals become real. I was telling our authors yesterday on a coaching call that there will be many periods of waiting in the life of an author. So for example, you're waiting to hear back from the publisher. You submitted your manuscript and you're waiting to hear back from an editor. You're working through your book cover process. You're waiting for the designer to send you book cover designs. You're waiting for the day that your book actually comes out. There's like a lot of waiting when it comes to the life of a writer. So what do you do while you wait? The answer is you work while you wait. You dig your well before you're thirsty. And this is what I told our authors yesterday. I'm like, okay, right now it's the spring. If your book comes out in the fall, then what can you do now in the spring and in the summer that the you in the fall will look back and say, I'm so glad that I did that. Okay, if you're watching this in the spring, then, or if you're watching this in the fall, then what can you do in the fall to get you ready for the spring? There are seasons. So I like to think 2 seasons ahead or 6 months ahead, right? Every season's about 3 months. So imagine in 180 days from now, what do you want to be true in your life as an author? Now, what specifically we talked about yesterday on the coaching call was going on podcasts. And so I want to lean in a little bit on that as an example. But even if you don't want to be on podcasts, this will still apply to you. The idea here is to zoom in on your goals. Start wide and then zoom in to get ultra specific. So what I share with our authors is I want you to imagine that is now November 15th, and I'm recording this around March 15th, okay? So that's essentially 6 months or so away. And how many podcasts do you want to be on? How many podcasts do you want published that you're a guest on in 6 months from now? So I had them type in the chat, and most of them said 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere between 5 to 10. So I said, okay, awesome. So if you want to be on 5 podcasts, how many podcasters do you need to ask to be on their show? And that right there is the power of zooming in on your goals, because it caused everybody to pause and go, wait a second, if I want to be on 5 podcasts, if my goal is 5 podcast appearances, then I probably need to reach out to more than 5 podcasters. Do you get it? Because your hit rate, your success rate is probably not 100%, especially if you have a small following, if you're just getting started. Even the world's most famous people, right? Even if the biggest best-selling author that you can think of wanted to be on 5 podcasts and reach out to those 5 podcasters, there's a pretty good chance that 1 or 2 of them is going to say, I would love to have you on my show, but unfortunately I'm taking a break, or I already have filled the calendar, or it doesn't fit the season that we're in, or what have you. Even the world's most famous podcaster, or even the world's most famous author, speaker, leader, is not going to have a hit rate of 100%. But you starting out, let's just say 10% is realistic. 10%. That means you need to identify 50 perfect podcasts for you to be on in order for you to be on 5 of them. 50 in order to be on 5. Now, in my coaching yesterday, I taught them a specific strategy. I'm not going to go on all the details here. Essentially, it's about building relationships over time. So if you want to be on 5, you have to identify the 50 and build relationships with those 50 podcasters, knowing that a whole bunch of them are going to ignore you. A whole bunch of them are going to be busy. A whole bunch of them are taking a break, or have already recorded their content, or already have a different theme for their season. There's 100 reasons why somebody could say no, but the one reason you don't want to give is that you never asked. That's the worst reason of all, is that you never asked, and so it was an automatic no instead of a decided no. You don't want to have the default no, you want to have the decided no. So what do? You zoom out and then you zoom in. Zooming out looks like 6 months in the future. This is what I want to be true. I want to be on 5 podcasts. Zooming in then asks the big question. And this is the question that most people skip when it comes to their goals. The big question that most people skip is not what, but how. If you're clear on the what, the how will appear. The clearer you are on the what, the clearer the how will appear. So I want to be on 5 podcasts, and I know that if I have a 10% hit rate, 10% success rate, that means I need to build a relationship with 50 podcasters. So the question is who, not how. Who, not how. That's a great book by Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan about this topic. Who, not how. Those 50 podcasts are hosted by who's? They're hosted by people. So who are those people? One of our authors on the call yesterday identified this specific podcast. It was like a motherhood podcast. I'm like, okay, good. I've heard of them. I know one of the hosts. Let's lean in. So let's go to their website. So I went over their website. And how many shows have they posted recently? And then what we found is that they just posted their show that they said after 10 years, we're stopping the show. And I was like, okay, I got to take them off the list. So you might have this vague idea of, okay, I want to reach out to about 50 people, and they might be these kind of people. But then when you look into it, you realize that, oh, this podcast doesn't even record anymore. They just retired. Or this one's taking a break. Or this one doesn't have guests. Or this one has changed their mission. So you zoom out by saying, I want to be on 5. Then you zoom in by saying, now, how exactly do I get there? And when you zoom in even further, you say, okay, how do I get there? Let's identify those 50 podcasts that I want to be on. Then you have to ask, who is it that decides who is on the show for each of those podcasts? Now, usually it's like the podcast host, right? Because that's the person who ultimately is the decision maker. They're the face of the podcast. Most podcasts probably don't have a huge team anyway, so it's probably just the host or maybe like an assistant. So now the key is building a strategic relationship with those 50 people. Literally putting them on a Google Sheet, on a spreadsheet, on an Excel document, and then starting to build that relationship. Following them, commenting on their content, sharing their content, sending encouraging notes, leaving a review in their podcast, leaving a review on their book, like finding ways to be a cool person to build the relationship with them, right? So if you do that over time, then eventually what happens is you can ask. You earn the right to ask. You earn the right to ask to be on the show. And when that relationship is warm with the who, then the how will appear. They'll say, oh yeah, of course, I'd love you to be on my show. Here's how to do it. Click here to book a time when I record. Let's find a way to make this work. I'm really excited to have you on my show. To get it? Okay. So what I wanted to share with you today is this idea of zooming in. I started listening to a biography by a really famous person. If I said this person's name, you go like, you know who this person is. But I don't want to say who it is because there's so many preconceived notions about this person. But what this person said is the vision that he or she had was so clear. Like he or she knew what industry that they wanted to be in. But it wasn't really about, I want to be in this industry. It was, I want to have these specific results in this industry, and like crystal clear, zoomed in, that they knew exactly what they wanted to be true. So I was thinking about that this morning at the gym about my 10-year vision of publishing 1,000 books. Now that's a zoomed out goal. I want to publish 1,000 books through Hope Books in the next 10 years. By the time my youngest son graduates from high school, I want to cross my own graduation stage, get my own graduation certificate and say, we did it. 1,000 books published. 1,000 books published by the time my youngest son graduates from high school. That's a very clear vision, but it's a zoomed out vision. It's kind of like saying, I'm going to go to Mars, or I'm going to move to California. Or a lot of people in my world, it's like, I'm going to write a book. Okay, great. That's a zoomed out goal. So what's the zoomed in goal? And I realized I don't have a zoomed in goal right now, and I need one. So we recorded a series of Facebook ads a couple of weeks ago with Liz, who's the host of our conference. And Liz, the videos go like this. Are you an Alabama mom who's thinking about writing a book? And then another one says, are you a Kentucky mom who's thinking about writing a book? And then another one, are you a North Carolina mom who's thinking about writing a book? And then one says, are you a pastor thinking about writing a book? Are you a therapist thinking about writing a book? And I realized, wait a second, I could put numbers behind each one of those. I could literally have a campaign and say, we're looking for 9 Kentucky moms in March to write a book. Whoa, that's so much clearer, because one of those Kentucky moms is going to say, I'm a Kentucky mom. I'm wanting to write a book. You're looking for 9. Maybe I can be one of those 9. And the more specific you are in your goal, then now you can measure it, and you can look at it and you can say, how much closer am I today? Who do I know that's a Kentucky mom who wants to write a book? And that is so much clearer. I need 9 Kentucky moms in April to write a book that's going to lead to my 1,000, rather than I just want 1,000 people. Do you understand? So zoom in on your goal. Start with the what. The what is zoomed out. The how is zooming in. But then the who is specifically identifying exactly who you want to work with. And that's the zoomed in goal. And when you're clear on that, this is who I want to help, this is who I want to work with, then the goals are much more easy to accomplish, because you're clear on the what, you're clear on the how, you're clear on the who.